out with reading from his profile at Matthew Pollard underscore, the rapid growth guy, host of Better Business Coach podcast, characterized as a true differentiation, niche marketing and sales systemation powerhouse. Austin, Texas, MatthewPollard.com, and 14,196 you are following that, and you have 14,137 followers. Welcome to the show, Matthew.
Thank you very much, mate. I'm happy to be here.
Great. So how are things in Austin, Texas?
If you must ask, they're very cold at the moment, but yes, we're about to start to get out of the winter season now, which I'm excited about.
Yeah. And with your accent, are you originally coming from Texas?
Yes, so most people find it hard to believe that I'm actually from Austin, Texas. I'm actually originally from Australia. I've only lived in Austin for the last few years.
Yeah, great. So down under to the to the western country. Great.
Well, still both Western countries, but the complete other side of the world, definitely.
Yeah. And I started out when I did podcasting with the help from a guy in Australia called Prodos, and that was in 2006. So I interviewed people in America and Sweden and other places, and I got help from the podcasting studio in Australia. So that was fascinating with the technology. And today we are testing the app using recording of this conversation. And a little of backstory. Your assistant reached out to me and wanted to be on the show, and then we scheduled this meeting with a virtual assistant and artificial intelligence called X.IE for artificial intelligence. So now we are here and having a conversation about what's going on in your life and what's your plans for the future. So, what's happening right now, Matthew?
Well, at the moment there are a few things, I guess. I've just won a bunch of awards before the end of the year, so I am putting together a couple of new products at this start of the year, and looking forward to launch them about June, July later on. So, some very exciting things happening at the moment around the concepts of my podcast success, which was Better Business Coach, and my personal branding, which is all around rapid growth.
Yeah. And what do you mean by rapid growth? Is it in time or in revenue or both or some other kind of measurement?
Well, rapid growth can mean a number of things depending on the individual. So rapid growth for one person can mean taking on lots of additional staff and growing a business to a larger size. Rapid growth for other people can mean getting themselves busy enough that they feel comfortable to put their prices up and they can start charging more for additional work. So it's really a concept that comes down to what the actual individual is looking for. A lot of people that I've worked with focus on just getting a higher hourly rate. They're charging well less than they can afford to be charging in their business just because they don't have enough customers. So we seek to increase that. My primary goal is to increase profit, not to increase revenue, and that can be done by just increasing hourly rates and making sure that they get more billable hours, or it can be done by getting a lot more staff into a business and rapidly growing that. But again, sometimes that comes with risks, and we have to make sure that those risks don't take away from the profit.
And as you have also then in Twitter profile to differentiate yourself and your services from others, and also have find your niche. Do you help people in coaching with that also?
Yeah, I spend a lot of time helping people with that. So I've worked with large corporate organizations and also very small businesses. I work with between 4 and 6 small to medium businesses every single month to try and help them expand their brand. And look, I've been very lucky to have done so well with all of my clients. One of the major things I focus on is really helping them understand how to differentiate themselves with a unified message that encapsulates what they do in a congruent way. I find a lot of branding and marketing experts try and come up with something that sounds cool or something that's SEO friendly, where my focus is really on bringing it back to what their core is and what's congruently them. Then secondly, I focus heavily on niche marketing, because I'm a big believer that if you speak to everybody, you're speaking to nobody. So as a result, I like to really focus in on the niche market. And then third, I like to help them craft a sales system that actually works. And by focusing on those three principles, then yeah, it works very well, and my clients have all had great success. I mean, these principles are all ones that I apply myself. My podcast I launched, and then within 24 hours it hit new and noteworthy in 3 separate continents in both video and audio format, which is pretty unheard of in the industry, especially for a little niche podcast like mine. I launched my Twitter profile in May last year. That's to say I had 184 followers or 168 followers that I wasn't really working too hard to grow. I put my rapid growth strategy together, and within 7 months I was listed by Evan Carmichael as the 43rd most retweeted business coach on Twitter. I launched my website in February last year. 9 months later, it was inducted into the International Sales Blogger Hall of Fame. So really whatever you focus on, if you follow the principles of differentiated and unified message and niche market and a sales system, you'll always obtain rapid growth.
Interesting. It's inspiring to hear, because I have been blogging and podcasting for a long time, and I haven't had that, but I have had a steady growth, you could say, over time. But it's fascinating to hear, and could learn about that. And it's also a bit funny that I'm talking to you now, because you reached out through your assistant, and my previous podcast here interview was with Daryl Urbanski, and his podcast name is bestbusinesscoach.ca. So, and here you have Better Business Coach podcast. So it's fun with the names there.
Well, I guess a lot of people try and work within specific industries, so they're always looking for the better name. But as far as I'm concerned, my branding is quite strong, and as a result, I do get a great listenership. I think that if you try and own any market, well, then you're just going to be setting yourself up for failure. It's never going to happen. And if people copy you, or if you're not the market trendsetter, that doesn't matter. It's about coming back to something that's more congruently with you. So when I worked out the Better Business Coach name, that was primarily about delivering on a need that all business coaches had, which is that they wanted to be better at being business coaches. But predominantly, my message is not about being a better business coach. My message is all about rapid growth. So I give them what they want, which is all about giving them the worksheets that they need to be better business coaches. I've got 155 templates, which I give away quite a few of those on the podcast, and teach them how to use those, which a lot of coaches don't really have. They don't have those worksheets that they can really utilize. Secondly, that I give them ideology and training on how to be a better business coach. But what I give them that they need is the strategies about how to grow and sell, how to sell business coaching, how to grow their business.
That's great to hear, and interesting. And I've been thinking about that also myself, and the introspection, how to become more niched in so on, in a way, and also differentiate my services from others. And mainly it has to do with your personal branding also. And you have a fascinating story. I read your bio. Do you want to tell the listeners a bit about your past and so on, and what you have gone through?
Look, I mean, it's. Feel free to ask me any questions you like, but I mean, this is in simple terms. When I left high school, I had a reading speed of a 6th grader, far from anyone that was going to be highly successful. And 10 years later, I had been responsible for 5 multi-million-dollar success stories. Now I help people from all over the world. More importantly, I guess I was actually quite introverted and terrified to sell, and even terrified to talk to my own friends, let alone actually going out and communicating with people like I do now every day. And how I got over that was that I actually learned how to sell on YouTube. I know it surprises people that there's more than just cat videos on YouTube,
I
but
like
that's how
cat
I learned.
videos.
And and look, they all have their place. What was surprising to me was that there were other things there, and I taught myself so many skills through YouTube on how to actually sell and get market acquisition. And then as a result of that, I then found that a lot of salespeople were focusing on just selling and working really hard there. And I came up with the conceptuality that if you start with sales, you've already lost. Because if the branding's not done, then you're always going to be working harder than you need to get clients. I guess one of the things that makes me uniquely different is that I started in the land of door-to-door sales, the stuff that most people don't want to have anything to do with and are terrified to do themselves. Then I went back and I did my MBA, so I now understand marketing from a perspective of an MBA graduate. But the problem is most people that do a high-level MBA haven't had the sales experience, and most people that have done sales generally don't know marketing. So as a result, there's a disconnect between the two, and they almost seem like they're opposing parties, even though they should be playing on the same team. I'm also a master in NLP, which is the study of thought, neuro-linguistic programming. And as a result of that, I have a firmer understanding of what words to use to motivate people to buy and how to frame things in the right way. And one of the things we learn about sales, even though, as I said, if you start with sales, you've already lost, and you need to work out what your unique message is and what your niche market is, because then this becomes even more powerful. And that is that you can actually use a process or a series of steps that you follow in sales. And if you follow them one by one, it just leads to a sale as opposed to having to eventually ask for it, which is uncomfortable. And what I find is I've worked with a lot of people to help script that, including my own sales organizations, where I've been known to script a sale from the hello all the way through my jokes, all the way through the close at the end. And as a result, it takes out the infrequency. It almost becomes the McDonald's, would you like fries with that?
Okay. So that's interesting to hear, and I want to dive into it a bit more. I have a mentor and a friend that I also doing business together with projects, and he's back in sales and also banking industry and so these kind of things, and also have people with in economical problems. And I'm coming from the purchasing side in the manufacturing industry. So it's interesting to see from a different side, but at the same time, it's two sides from the same coin. So and it's interesting to see that you say about that. If you start with sales or sales tactics and so on, it's wrong from the beginning. But for me, even how do you do these phrases and so on? Like, do you want fries with that in a natural way, so it doesn't sound, how do you say? Yeah,
Well, what you're saying is, how do I
yeah,
not sound
yeah,
robotic and scripted? Yeah, and the answer to that is don't be
yeah.
robotic and scripted. The reason why scripting doesn't work for a lot of people is twofold. One is that they use words that aren't natural, and as a result, they feel uncomfortable. But secondly, they don't practice and learn them. I mean, you think about a person that's delivering Shakespeare. They're not their words, yet it sounds so relaxed and so natural. Why? Because they've spent so long practicing it. Now, these people are working off Broadway sometimes for cents in the dollar, yet they still know the script very, very well, and they're still delivering it perfectly, and it sounds natural. Now think about your favorite movie that you watch on TV or your favorite TV show. They're not your favorite because it sounds robotic and scripted. They're your favorite because what they do sounds so natural and you identify with them. Now, if they hadn't have spent time learning the script, well, then unfortunately, they'd be really, really uncomfortable too, and you would change the channel. What generally happens is somebody will write a script that's not natural, that has no unique differentiators, that doesn't speak directly to an individual group, which means they're picking up the phone and speaking to the wrong people. And then on top of that, they probably wrote the script and now they're delivering it within 5 hours of getting handed it, as opposed to spending a day or two really learning and embracing and making it their own, so that when they finally deliver it, it's as natural to them, it's even more natural to them than just coming up with what to say on the spot, because they've got that now as a resource rather than, oh, what do I say next?
Sounds good. And sound advice. So it's practice, 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 and get it to find your natural voice. That's often what I am talking with blogging and other social media activities. So yeah. In the bio also it's some tragic thing you could say, or it you said that you were harassed and also got some, was it glassing, that some violence there?
Yeah, so look, I tell people that because it's important that people understand. I think that a lot of people, when they hear about somebody that is the number one salesperson in the largest sales and marketing company in the Southern Hemisphere, that then goes on to create very successful businesses, become a public speaker, create podcasts. And also, if you look at my bio photos these days, it looks like potentially I'm not a bad looking guy who has a lot going for me. And I like to bring people back to where I first started. When I first started, I had horrible acne. I was really, really uncomfortable about that. I used to have braces, and while I was selling for the first time, I did have braces. And then thirdly, when I was just starting to get the hang of sales and I was starting to feel really, really comfortable, I actually went through an incident where I was at a work engagement, and as a result of somebody that was across the room fixated on me who I've never met before, he actually ran across the room and, stabbed me in the head with a glass twice. And it resulted in requiring 26 stitches to the side of my face. It missed my eye by about a millimeter. Otherwise, I'd be blind and I'd have a glass eye. But the truth is that all of that happened, regardless, during that time, I still was able to sell. I was still able to penetrate and get new customers. I was still able to help and educate others on how to do so. So it has nothing to do with how you look. It has nothing to do with whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. It has everything to do with learning the systematic process that you need to follow to be successful. And secondly, actually spending the time learning it and implementing it.
It's great and good story there, and it's it's fascinating and a bit scary at the same time, and but good. It's not ending, but good progress. So,
Well, I'm quite well known for saying these days that the adversities we experience in our life seed the success of our future. And the reason why I believe that so heavily is that the reading speed issue, the glassing, all of these things that happened make my ability to help people believe that they can do it too much more profound. And perhaps that's added to my success slightly, but everybody has a glassing story. Everybody has an adversity they've had to overcome that makes their skill sets uniquely different. See, most people say, well, how do I differentiate? I'm a business coach, or I'm a copywriter, or I'm an SEO specialist, or I'm a doctor, or I'm a lawyer. And the answer I always say is, well, let's come back to what makes you uniquely different. How do you differentiate yourself from everybody else in the market? And when we do that, what we need to do is we need to look down and say, well, what are the unique abilities that you have that everybody else doesn't? What are the things that you deliver above and beyond the pure functional perspective skill that you have that allows you to make so many clients within a certain segment love you and want to give you referrals, reviews, and want to pay you more money? Once you realize that, then you actually will see that your own adversities and your own experiences and your own additional study have led to and seeded your own success.
And in that way, we could come into the so-called philosophical segment. It's through the whole conversation with fundamentalists. But when I hear your story there, I often don't quote him, but I think he said that right, and that was Friedrich Nietzsche saying that wouldn't kill you, and then you will become stronger. If it doesn't kill you, it will get you more strong, and so on. And
Definitely the case.
In some kind of segue, we talked before the conversation that we had on Skype and about that I have around half time the segment that we call trader principle, and it was coined by Miss Rand, author and philosopher. And the main thing there is how you have an exchange of ideas and values, as we are having now a conversation. And it was again fascinating when how you reached out through your assistant that you want to come on the show, and then that got me curious, and I did some research and read up on you, and then we have back and forth conversation through your assistant and through this virtual assistant that I have. And because this is like trade in time and so on, and you're a busy person, so I thank you for taking time. But it's freely exchanged. So what's your take and thoughts on this?
I think that a lot of people avoid exchange of services, because especially when they're trying to start their own businesses, because they're very busy, and any person that wants their services should be their client, because they should be paying money for their services. What they don't understand is, especially within a small network of close friends and the exterior relationships that you have with other people, that every business needs services. And if I was to get paid from you to provide you business coaching, and then I need to set up a membership site and I need to pay somebody to do that, well, then the money I get from you goes to that person anyway. I think what people don't understand is that when you have a business, it's not like receiving money like a paycheck. So the money that you get paid has to be attributed to other expenses and other investments that you have to make in your own business. So when you get paid a sum of money, you have to constantly be focused that that money is not just yours to put away, it's your money to invest or pay on expenses. So how is that different than a reciprocal relationship that you have with somebody else that would come to you and say, look, I would be interested in doing this for you if you would do this for me? I think what commonly goes wrong at this stage, though, is when people look at reciprocal relationships, they look at an exchange of time, i.e., I will give you an hour of my time if you give me an hour of your time. Now, that's where things become slightly harder. I'll give you another example. Let's just assume that I was a professional writer and I charged about $50 an hour. Then I decided that I wanted to work with a business coach, and I really wanted that business coach to help me and assist me. Well, what they would do is they would come to each other and they'd say, well, I'll do an hour of writing for you if you were to give me an hour of coaching. Now, this is what's called a non-commercial exchange of services. Okay, it's not fair and equitable for both parties, because the person that was the business coach, if indeed they're actively out there in the marketplace charging $500 an hour for coaching, then a fair distribution would be 10 hours of writing for 1 hour of coaching. So as long as you still run the distribution or exchange of services in that way, then that, in my view, is completely fine. Now, I have had people come to me that have offered me this option of a fair distribution of services, and I have always, from time to time, I have looked at it if I indeed need that service for my business. However, I evaluate them like I would be paying for them. As a coach, I'm generally booked out 6 to 8 weeks in advance all the time. I have no trouble getting clients. So when I receive money in, I have to decide where that money should go. Now, if I'm going to exchange time for services, I'm actually going to have to take a paid client spot and turn it into a pro bono client spot in exchange for that service. So as a result, I don't evaluate them any differently at all. I interview them like I was going to be interviewing a trade partner, and then I evaluate whether or not that's the right decision for me. Now, I've done that with video studios. I've done that with ghostwriters. I've done it with email autoresponder people that have helped me write email sequences. I've also done it with PR agents before in the past. Now, is that something that I continually do on the long term with individuals? Sometimes, yes. I still have reciprocal relationships with a couple of people now. However, is it something that I look as a primary function? No. And the reason for that is I could have 27 reciprocal relationships with a bunch of other people and none of us would ever make money. It should be something that you do occasionally on a case-by-case basis based on the fact that there is a relationship that you can see, i.e., this person has something that you want, you have something that they want, you would have hired them anyway, and you have tested tested them, and you believe after having some sort of form of interview that they are a good fit to work with you. Now, the next thing that goes wrong is that people, when they do this, they don't set specific deliverables on both sides because they're getting the service for free. No, they're giving up their most valuable resource, their time, in exchange for other people's time. Therefore, just like if you were writing a check for $5,000, you should make sure you understand what the deliverables are. You both should commit to things. You should both sign a contract just like you would if somebody was going to give you $5,000 in exchange for service, and then you both deliver. It should have very firm objectives, and it should have a very short time frame for delivery. Because after the first one, you kind of know that both parties are going to live up to their bargain. However, reciprocal relationships with a 6-month a 6-month deliverable that's not defined, somebody's going to let the other party down, and that's why it has such a bad effect on a lot of people when it's suggested. Because if you had a service that I really wanted, and you really wanted me to work with you, and if you charged twice as much as what I charged, then I would just exchange twice my hours for your specific hours. Why would money change hands? It doesn't make sense. But most people won't do that just because they've been let down before and it doesn't work.
Thanks for your thoughts and comments on that. That was interesting and fascinating, and something to chew on. Matthew, what's your plans for the future? What's up in the near future to come?
Well, having only arrived in the United States a year and a bit ago now, my plan is always just to substantiate myself here. I'm well known now in Austin. As a matter of fact, when I first got here, I didn't know a soul outside my girlfriend, who had only moved here only a few months before I did. However, now I get invited to events as one of the most connected people in Austin. I now have a global brand because I've won International Sales Blogger Awards. I'm listed for being a highly retweeted business coach. And as a result, my brand brings clients in from all over the world. The main stepping stone for me at this stage is, given the fact that I'm so highly booked in for my coaching, is to leverage that, because I want to be able to help more people, and I want to be able to help people much, much cheaper than I can help them right now. And as a result, what I'm doing is I'm leveraging all of the content that I've spent my lifetime developing into a video series. And I'm doing it quite differently than the average video series. So the Rapid Growth University has actually had a bunch of my clients fly in from all over the world, and they all volunteered to come in at their own time and at their own cost because they wanted to show their belief in the content and how much it helped them. And they've all come in, and the process is that instead of me speaking onto a camera and saying, this is why you should listen to me, or here's the theory, and you've got no way of knowing that it works, I'll be delivering the theory. My customers, or my clients, if you like, will be explaining how they implemented that, what some of the barriers they hit were, some additional learnings that they had to make, and the results that they had. So as a result, we're actually talking high-level case studies, as opposed to, here's the theory, trust me, it's going to work, which is much harder to take on whim, especially considering these days it's so easy for anyone to put together a video series. So that's why I thought with my customers it would provide something uniquely different. So that's going to be called the Rapid Growth University, and that's going to come out later on the year. I also have the Better Business Coach University, which is where I'm putting together videos on 155 templates on how to utilize, these templates are designed to help people coach businesses. Basically, the idea is that these templates I designed over the last 10 years and I've really created them and perfected them to work with clients. I had a principle that if any client asked me to coach them on anything, I would create a worksheet for people, for myself to use, so that regardless of whether I was in a good mood, bad mood, whatever, I could use the template. The template basically coaches the client. I'm just facilitating the process. And now I'm training people on how to use those so that they can become better business coaches themselves. And that will be called the Better Business Coach University. And that launches again later on this year.
Where could we find these resources in the future?
Sure. So the best place to come is to matthewpollard.com, which is my website. You can find that by just typing in Matthew Pollard in Google. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. I come up about 80 or 90% of the links. You can also find me on Twitter, which is at Matthew Pollard _. Please add me to LinkedIn under just, I've got a special link at LinkedIn, which is just Matthew Pollard Speaker, or you can just type in Matthew Pollard in LinkedIn and I should come up. But yeah, definitely reach out. And the best thing to do is if you are interested in creating your rapid growth message, which if you're a business wanting to grow your business, you should definitely be. If you're a business coach wanting to grow your coaching brand, you should definitely be. I actually give away on the front page of my website, if you click on that you want my help obtaining rapid growth, I actually give away 13 emails. And one of them even has a 5-step process that I've created that have helped so many people come up with their own unique and unified message that differentiates them from the competition. So all you would have to do is put your email address in and you would start to receive those emails. And that way, when these products launch, you'll also be one of the first people I'll let know, and you can become part of my beta launch for people that are part of my mailing list.
Great, thanks for the info. When you are learning new stuff and doing personal development and so on, do you read any special books? Do you have any book tips, or what are you reading or looking at the moment?
Sure. So when you're suggesting book tips and what I'm reading at the moment, so let's discuss book tips first.
Yep.
Obviously, having a reading speed of a 6th grader, clearly I wasn't exactly the kind of person that would pick up, especially when I was learning. That's why I learned off YouTube. I mean, I couldn't exactly pick up Brian Tracy's Psychology of Selling. So I had to learn different ways to acquire information. And what I found at that stage was YouTube. However, now there are podcasts. And there are 2 other technologies that are worth mentioning. The first one is a product called Audible. Now, I listen to Audible books now because, again, reading is not my favorite thing. But I consume 3 books a week on Audible because I'm not sure if you've noticed, but Australians talk kind of quickly. And as a result, we also listen very quickly. But it is something you can train yourself to do. I listen to it at 1 times speed, then 1.5, then 2, then 2.5, then 3. So now I listen to an average 6-hour book, which is the average book is between 4 and 6 hours. Let's call it 6 just to keep numbers simple. I listen to it at 3 times speed, which means I consume a book that most people would take 6 hours to listen to in 2 hours. Now, maybe it takes me 3 because I'm taking notes from time to time. Now, I take the dog for a walk, 4 times a day when I'm at home, and it takes me about 15 minutes, which means I read a book in 3 days just by taking the dog for a walk, and that doesn't include other times that I listen to books. I also consume a huge amount of blog posts, and I do this by emailing them to a Google Ad Pocket account, and then listening to them on a software called Lizgo. Now, again, you can listen to them at an accelerated speed, and that means that I can consume more information than most people. Now, if you're asking what books I'd be interested in suggesting, there are several. Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad would be a wonderful book for people to understand the concepts of entrepreneurship and why they need to get out of that rat race that they blindly run into, because that's what the world says we should do. The 4-Hour Workweek is a fantastic resource for helping people understand how to manage their time on a more effective way. Now, when I say helps them understand, it doesn't give them practical skills on how to do so, but it does give them the mindset of how to look at time, and I think that's sensational. And then I would also suggest from the land of sales, I would suggest Brian Tracy's Psychology of Selling. It's a tremendous book, and it offers so much value for helping people understand the basics of sales scripting.
Great. Thanks for book tips. I have read the 2 of them, and I've read others with Brian Tracy, but I will check that out with Robert Tracy. And thanks for mentioning Audible. I have a link there called audibletrial.com/egonetcast if the listeners want to test it out and get a free book for 30 days. And see if I want to continue the service. Giving great arguments for this kind of service. And what was the name of listening tool that you used?
Sure. So there are actually two. One is called Lisgo, Lisgo, and the other one is just called Article Reader. Now, there's also another one called Natural Read. So there you go. You've got three options. Have a pick. The third one, you copy and paste text into it, and then it reads it to you. The thing I like about the other two is you just email it to a specific email address, which will be some crazy random code at adpocket.com. And then when you open up the application, the text is already there for you to listen to.
Okay, great. Thanks for the tips. It was interesting to hear about that, and I will definitely check them out. So because I'm often out walking and listening then to podcasts and others, and then articles could be, because often you do this bookmarking thing and save for later or send the email to yourself. But now if you could listen to it, that could be a neat thing, and you could so-called save time.
Well, the major thing about it too is if you email it to yourself, now instead of, if you were me, now instead of getting 150 emails a day, you're getting 165. Now, that's just going to clog your email, and then you've got all these emails. You've sent yourself tasks, but then you've also sent yourself articles, so you ignore the emails you send yourself, and you're actually missing jobs you should have been doing. So that doesn't work. The next thing is you bookmark them, and that means that you put them off to read at another time. Another time is this magical land where nothing ever happens. So that you're never going to read those either. But it also doesn't create a reading list of the order that you save them, and a lot of times that it bookmark.
Yeah. What did you say with the bookmark?
Sorry? Oh, yeah, so the bookmark leaves a major issue as well. The benefit with this is when you send it across to your AdPocket account, it automatically loads, and then next time you've got downtime, you just pick it up and listen. You could be at a doctor and you go, oh, forgot to bring a book. Well, now you can read that blog post that you want to do quickly and easily. It's simple that way. And yeah, as I said, the great thing about it is it's got a great way of ordering it and keeping things simple.
Yeah, very great tip there. Yes, I was asking if you would listen to somebody in the future, who would you want me to interview as a future guest, and what kind of topic, if you have any speciality or interest?
Sure. So there are a couple of people that I'm always interested in hearing from. So I'm always interested in hearing from people from the land of digital marketing, because that's an industry that I'm now learning quite substantially. All of my early businesses were 100% outbound focused. I'm well known in the industry for turning my business 100% inbound for in 7 months. And I'm not talking I now have 2 inquiries and I make $20,000 a year. I'm talking a 6-figure consulting business, 100% inbound within 7 months. My whole business now, I don't actively go out looking for clients. All I do is do interviews like this, Google, and all of my external media, and through social media, I develop a 6-figure business out of many different platforms. Things like Twitter, which I never used to use, I develop out a 6-figure income out of. Things like LinkedIn, same. Now, so I'm always looking for new content in the digital marketing space to help better what I do, because it terrifies me how many people that claim themselves as social media and online strategists who read some books a few years ago and are still suggesting what they suggested 3 years ago. So many things have changed. Actually, nothing is the same. So it's terrifying to me that they do that. So people like Neil Patel have got some great content. Be careful, though. There's a lot of his content that goes back years, and you could spend an entire month integrating advice that he gives you that's often out of date. So make sure the content that you've got is fresh and up to date. I also think that Brian Tracy would make a great guest on your show, and he still does accept invitations, so you may be able to reach out to him. And then thirdly, I think that Tim Ferriss from 4 Hour Workweek would make an amazing guest as well.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and I have his books, and also listen to his podcast show, and I know friends that are very into him. So he's a fascinating guy. So thanks for the tip there. And Anything else that you want to add, or any thoughts, or that you want to share here?
Look, I think the main thing that's important for everybody to understand is that all of the information that I just gave and all the information on the rest of your episodes is 100% useless if people don't take action, if people don't implement that advice. And be careful here unless the advice is validated. Make sure that the advice that you're following is well thought out, and the person that's giving that advice has a proven track record of success. But then if you don't take action, it's on you that you're still in the mediocrity of life 10 years from now. Robert Kiyosaki actually talks about this. He says most people don't, the reason why there's not more millionaires in this world is that most people aren't willing to take any risk. He also says that most people want to wait until all the lights are green before they'll even put their foot on the accelerator, as opposed to someone like myself who will see a few red lights in the distance and just believes that those red lights will go green by the time I get there. Now, I don't just wish and hope and keep my fingers crossed. My focus is on learning and researching how to make those lights turn green, whether that be listening to books on Audible, reading blog posts, or actively looking for that information. But at least I've got my foot to the pedal and I'm moving forward. So I'm suggesting everybody start to move forward and then look for the resources to turn those red lights green.
Great, very sound advice. And if the listeners and readers and followers of you and myself want to continue the conversation and take action, ideas in action, they could follow me at Ego Netcast or Lyceum, Aristotle's school in Athens, or going to egonetcast.com. And then if you want to support, then /support. And please, Matthew, please repeat your sites on the interwebs.
Sure. So my web address is matthewpollard.com. And if you go to matthewpollard.com/growth, you'll be able to get that email sequence that I suggested to you. There's only 13, but they break down the entire principles of rapid growth and how you can apply them to your business. Also, you can find me on Twitter at @MatthewPollard_, LinkedIn, Matthew Pollard Speaker, Facebook, Matthew Pollard Speaker. And also, as I said, if you just type in my name in Google, you'll be able to see me come up about 8 or 9 times on the homepage. And some of those will be at places like Entrepreneur, Inc., CEO, and Salesforce.com, GetResponse, all these lovely places that I've been published where I give away some amazing free content. So make sure you check that out too.
That's great. And I will end with a question that Chris Brogan is often asking in his email. He's saying, what are you drinking right now? Right now I'm drinking black tea. Do you have a favorite beverage?
Yes, definitely. Well, in the morning, which it is here at the moment, I drink mate tea. And mate tea is because I'm much more creative now. When I used to be in sales, coffee was fine. However, mate tea I found actually levels me out, so I don't get those big highs and those big lows like once I got older, started to get with coffee. So mate tea is something that I'm drinking right now, but I'm a big advocate of water, and if you don't drink enough water in the day, then your creativity will limit yourself so much. So make sure you drink enough water.
Yeah, and that's good advice. And with that, I say cheerio and cheers.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.